On the third day of our stay in Seattle before the cruise, we decided to take a tour of the Seattle Locks. Now, I was not aware that there were Seattle locks that separated the salty seawater of Puget Sound from the clear freshwater of Lake Washington. So we got on board this Argosy boat, which took us through uh, the harbor and port of Seattle, uh, leading into Puget Sound there. And so here we're on the boat and looking eastward towards Seattle. Some of the, I believe this was probably Pier 91, where the cruise ships, including our Holland America cruise line, would be leaving on Saturday. Sailboats, all sorts of pleasure craft. In fact, the narrator on the boat was telling us that Seattle had per capita the more pleasure craft than any other city in the United States. As we proceeded north, just another view of the Seattle skyline. Again, the mornings there in Seattle are usually overcast, cloudy, foggy, but about this time of day, all of that is baking off. A close-up view of the Space Needle and some of the displays there of the old 1962 World's Fair. This is a ferry that would transfer vehicles, cars, and passengers from one point of Seattle over to another. Ferris wheel that is on the one of the piers, I believe Pier 57 there in Seattle. I tried to get parking space to get on that Ferris wheel, could not find one. A little lighthouse here leading into the port of Seattle. Used to be a manned lighthouse, now it's just merely automated. These are what they call paddle boards, kind of like a surfboard where people stand and use a paddle to move from point A to point B. Now we're getting closer to the locks here. This is one of the bridges, a railroad bridge over the inlet there to the locks. Our boat would have to wait for boats leaving the freshwater of Washington Lake into saltwater. Here's our ship entering the lock, and I believe the water level where we were was about 8 feet lower than the water level of Lake Washington, which is on the other side of this this lock or these doors. You can see that some of the water leaking through. Again, we're navigating into this lock. Eventually, water would raise our ship up to the 8-foot level. The locks would open, the doors would open, and we just sail right out into the fresh water of Washington Lake there. This is the building that manages and powers and controls the lock system there. Again, we're entering the lock, waiting for water to raise our boat, our ship up to the correct level of the body of water that we were going to enter. Here's the lock doors opening, and just a little bit of maybe 6 inches of water difference, level and water difference there coming into the lock. Then we just proceed on into Lake Washington, where again a lot of these boats are enter here for dry dock, repair, refurbishing. Somebody had bought this old military boat and was going to use it for pleasure craft, large barges. Again, some of these vessels were seagoing, but the best way to get them repaired is to bring them into Lake Washington. If you've watched Deadliest Catch, here's the Wizard out of Seattle, Washington, which is featured on that Deadliest Catch Discovery. Again, we're just moving northward into Lake Washington here. Here's some houses that are lakefront property, and you can see they've got their own little private wharf, again with their own little private yacht or boat sitting right out there outside their home. A couple of bridges that we had to go under here into Lake Washington. This was the bridge that was constructed by Ballard, the city of Ballard, which was a neighbor of Seattle. But at one point in time, Ballard's water supply went bad, and they came to Seattle and said, "Can we get your water and sewer?" And Seattle said, "Yeah, you can, but we're going to charge you an exorbitant amount of money." But So anyway, again, this freshwater lake is has a lot of big ships. This one is the Arctic Star. If you eat some of the fresh seafood, that ship, the Arctic Star, would not only catch the crab or the shrimp or whatever, but they'd process it right on board and freeze it. So it was basically frozen on the water that it was caught on. And tugboats of all different varieties, shapes, and conditions out here on Lake Washington. Basically, just a lot. The area is nothing more than taking care of and maintaining all sorts of watercraft, whether it be for the freshwater lake or for the saltwater ocean. Again, maneuvering upward towards another one of the bridges here over Lake Washington. This one that we're approaching only had a clearance of 30 feet, so the little boat that we were on had to lower or remove all of its antennas so that it could safely go underneath that bridge. This is, I believe, the last bridge that we went under, one of the interstate or highway bridges. Now we're approaching the skyline of Seattle, but instead of from the east, excuse me, from the west and the south, we're coming in from the north and the east view, another view of the Space Needle from a totally different vantage point. But that was our tour of the SeattleSeaLocks the day before we took our tour, and I happened to catch a picture of a seaplane taking off. And that was on Friday before the Saturday